Meet Codename Goose, your on-machine open-source AI agent, built to automate your tasks. Codename Goose is an intelligent and autonomous agent capable of handling complex tasks thanks to its core features. Connect with apps and tools you already use with extensions. Built on the Model Context Protocol, you can connect to extensions like GitHub, integrate JetBrains IDEs, access Google Drive, or build your own custom integrations for Goose. For a curated list of extensions, visit our docs. With a wide range of compatible large language model providers, you can choose and integrate your preferred model. You can also run Goose as a desktop app or through the command line interface using the same configurations across both. You can think of Goose as an assistant, ready to take your instructions and do the work for you. Able to handle a wide range of tasks across various engineering domains. Here are examples of tasks Goose has helped people with already. Goose has helped dive into a new project in an unfamiliar coding language, conduct code migration such as Ember to React or Ruby to Kotlin, increase code coverage, and even generate unit tests for a feature, and much more. To get started using Goose right away, check out our quick start and be the first to know about upcoming features by joining our community.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Wild's Goose Case, where we highlight users, their use cases, and their sometimes wonky goosey experiments to hopefully spark some innovation with everyone watching and to get you to push the limits with Goose. My name is Ebony Lewis. I'm a developer advocate here at Block, and I'm with my amazing co-host per usual.
Hi everyone, my name is Adewale. Also a developer advocate here at Block, and I'm excited to be here as every other week. Happy Friday, happy Pie Day, it's 3/14. I hope we are celebrating with some pie. Yeah. Today we have an amazing guest, Andrew Gertig. I hope I pronounced the last name well.
Works great.
Welcome.
All
right, so you can give us a bit of an intro about yourself before we jump right into what we are doing today.
Absolutely. So I am the engineering lead for the web team at Cash, and have been at Block for a little bit over 4 years now. Came over as actually a part of the acquisition that we did of a company called Credit Karma Tax, and that became Cash App Taxes. So file your taxes for free through Cash App, and then now working on the broader web experience at Cash App across marketing and our logged in experience. And I get to work with a great group of folks on that every day.
I love that. 4 years. Oh, and I love this too. I love the commercial. We are hiring. I love how you added it as well. I'm super excited for today's live stream. We are going to be talking about a new VSCode extension that you've created, which is super exciting. And I'm going to let's just dive right in. Let's go straight into the demo. And everyone just wants to see what's going on. How do they do it? What does it do? So whenever you're ready, Andrew, you can take over.
Absolutely. Okay, so this is actually a broader kind of Block open source project as of yesterday. And so feel free to check this out. This is public at block/code-mcp. And this is a project that the web team is generally going to be working on together over the next kind of weeks and months. So super excited about that. There is a couple things to call out here. When you are interested in installing this, it's going to be two things that you have to install. You need to install the MCP server itself, which is running this command, npx Code MCP server install, right? And then what that will do is actually go through and it will install this NPM package globally for you on your machine. And it will actually then run through and attempt to install itself in Goose. So it'll set itself up in a config file, which works out of the box with our command line tools, and will very soon work out of the box with our desktop Goose app as well. But since it doesn't work just yet, what it does is it spits out an install URL for Goose desktop. If you want to go that route, you copy and paste that URL into your browser, you hit enter, and it will open Goose for you and actually pre-fill this UI with all the things you need to be pre-filled in there. If you don't want to do that step, you can do this manually, right? You can use these values here. Really, the most important value to get right is this command, npx code MCP server, right? What that does is so that when Goose instantiates a new session, it actually then calls these commands for each of the tools, which set up the server and allow Goose to communicate with the MCP server. And so again, just to go back to it, the other thing you need to install is the MCP extension. So this is a VS Code extension in the marketplace. So it's published, working on, we're gonna get a logo and a couple other things on there as well. But if you go here, you hit install, that will install it into VS Code for you. And then those two things together allow us to kind of get the ball rolling. All right.
Nice. I'm going to jump in really quick, Andrew, because I just thought about it. You didn't tell the audience what extensions are. Do you want to give a one-liner?
Absolutely, yeah. So extensions are ways for Goose to basically use tools that are exposed by different things, right? So a couple of the baked-in ones we have is our developer extension, which gives you the ability to write and read files. And so extensions are effectively, ways that Goose can reach out into the world and do things, right? It gives the agent the ability to gain context about things and then actually take action on those things. Does that make sense?
Yes, well said.
All right.
I wanted to do a quick recap, basically on what you've said. To use VS Code with Goose and the VS Code itself, you need to install the MCP server as a Goose extension, and then install the VS Code extension so that you can also have the functionalities within VS Code. So that is essentially what the architecture looks like. Goose, the AI agent, the MCP server, then the VS Code extension. Right.
Exactly right. Just to call it out, one of the reasons that we needed to do it that way is because the VS Code server, the MCP server, doesn't have the ability to actually interact directly with VS Code unless it's doing that through a VS Code extension. And that's just a security, protocol that VS Code, has. So that's why it's set up that way.
Nice.
Perfect.
All right. Do you want me to jump into a quick video demo that I recorded? And we can kind of maybe go from there?
Yes, let's see it.
All right. So let's see here. Let me jump back. Okay, so I've created a React app demo, and we're going to have Goose interact with that through VS Code. Right, so here we see that I've got Goose on the left, I've got VS Code on the right. I'm going to tell Goose, let's get started. You could really say anything here. And really what this does is it just helps trigger Goose to go and read your extension tool descriptions. And then some of those descriptions actually have prompts in them. And so I have prompted Goose, and when it gets started, to make sure that the folder that Goose is open to matches up with a running VS Code instance, right, that matches that folder structure. So you see here, we've gone through, we've set up the project path, we're reading it. Goose is like, okay, I see it. It's a create React app. Awesome. And so the next up, what I want to do is I want Goose to do something for me, right? So I want Goose to update app.tsx to actually do something fun, right? So we're going to ask Goose to change the app.tsx file to welcome whoever's viewing the page a little bit more emphatically. Right, and then we'll see what Goose does with that. Okay, so now Goose is going to check the tools, right? So it's going to read the file, right? So it's using the built-in text editor tool or extension, or that's a part of our developer extension, and it's viewing the file, and then it's saying, okay, now let me think about how I would want to change that file. And so what Goose has now done is created a diff. Let me pause that really quickly just so we can see this. So there's a diff that's been created on the right-hand side. So Goose, if you're not using the VS Code extension, will just write the file. And then you can use kind of the built-in Git tooling to be able to look at diffs. But what this does is it allows you to choose to accept or reject And I really think the reject is a nice kind of feature here, right? So we can say, actually, I don't like what you did, Goose. I'm going to reject that, right? But
Love that.
here we're going to accept it. Sorry, do you want to jump in?
No, I just said I love that.
Okay.
Continue.
So we hit accept, and so now Goose continues on, right? So it created the diff, we accepted it. Now it's opening the file just to make sure it's available to us. And this is what it did. So made it a little bit more interesting, right? And now let's actually make it a little even more interesting. And I'll maybe jump ahead a little bit here. All right, but I'm going to ask Goose to, make this even more exciting. Right, and we'll see. Okay, so I'll pause here. Here's the next diff that we created, right, with Goose. It's a little bit more in depth. I'll hit play. We can scroll a little bit here, and we'll see. This is more than the changes that we made before. We got some keyframes for some animations, some good things here. And we'll accept those changes. You can see on the left that Goose is waiting for us, and that's that kind of waiting animation. And we've accepted it, and then now Goose knows that, and it opens the file, and then let's see what we had. Let's see, jump over. All right, a lot more exciting. I feel welcome.
I love it.
All right, and I will pause there.
We do have a question, so we're taking a little pause.
Yeah, go for it.
From Tom, does it work with Cursor too? I'm trying not to have both VS Code and Cursor installed.
So I've not tested it with Cursor, so I don't know. I believe Cursor has the ability to use MCP tools, but I don't. Cursor to look like VS Code to Goose, it's potential, but I guess I'm not sure about that use case. I'll be honest, because I haven't tried it.
Oh, so we're gonna have to experiment after this. Thank you. Can't wait to play around with this. Same.
All right.
So rightfully mentioned, I think Cursor is an extension, like a fork of VS Code. So some of these extensions should work out of the box as much as data, like so. But yeah, good call out to test it in Cursor.
Yep. So I did want to just maybe quickly show. So I kept going after that because I was kind of interested to see what Goose would do. Mm-hmm. So the next thing I said to Goose is I said, I love what you did. Can we add an interactive experience? Right? And I'd like for it to be rating unicorn emojis to not like the mouse cursor. Let's add a force field around the mouse cursor. So it went off and it did a diff that I then accepted, but it didn't work, right? And so I had to go through a couple kind of steps where it's like there was a bug that we had to fix. I didn't tell it what the problem was. I just said there is a problem on line 14, and then it fixed that bug, but then it wasn't doing the force field. Had a couple attempts, where it wasn't getting exactly right, and then eventually on the last attempt it got it right, and then I changed the UI to be, or not the UI, the emoji from being unicorn to fire. And let me show you guys what that looks like here. So now we've got this. Actually, I went with the starstruck face, right? So it reacts to the mouse, and that's a nice little fun change. And I figured we could try something live here. All right, so let's change the size of the emojis to be twice as large. All right, so this is where the live demo goes off the rails, right?
We'll pray to the live demo God.
Exactly. I know, right? Right, so Goose is working.
While we're waiting,
go ahead.
Work its magic. So you mentioned that you tried a few things and you weren't getting the outcome that you wanted. Do you think maybe you could have changed your prompt? Like, did you reflect on that for a little bit to see, okay, what?
Absolutely. I was being extremely lazy at my prompting. I was, going with just how I felt. I didn't like what you did, Goose. Make it better. That approach.
No direction, just make it better.
Not very, very low direction on this one. It was more of the vibe coding, approach to things. Okay, so we see here that we've created a diff. Okay. So it looks like it does change the font size to be twice as large.
Yeah.
And then a little cleanup on some quotes and so forth, right? Well, let's go ahead and see what this does. If we accept those changes, we should be able to jump over here. And if I reload, there we go.
Those are huge.
They're twice as big.
I love it.
All right.
Awesome.
Oh, that's so cool.
Okay. would it be helpful for me to run through the actual extension code? Would there be interest in that to see, how the MCP server actually sets up tools?
Yeah, I think you should. And I think you should also show that the intro tool, the description that you have there that has it pull up the right project directory and stuff. You should have it.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this one is the one. Luckily, I'm right there. So
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Perfect.
So this is the list of tools, just to kind of go here. So these are my tool definitions. Okay. So each one of these, follows the MCP standard approach to, this object structure: name, description, input schema, etc. Tells you which of the inputs, are required. And here I have my handler kind of set up in line, right, for how I handle each tool. But one of the things that I did, and I've been kind of playing around with this, is that assuming you have the VS Code extension turned on, I think that means that you want to use it, right? And so, oopsie, I think I scrolled past it. There's an open project tool. Let's see, I think I passed it. Let's go back there. Here we go. So open project tool has a prompt, or the description basically includes a prompt, right? It says, call this tool as soon as a new session begins with the AI agent to ensure we are set up and ready to go. Open project opens a project folder in VS Code. This tool is also useful to ensure that we have the current active working directory for AI agent visible in VS Code. And so that's why when I said, let's get started, it went off and it's like, oh, I'm seeing this description for this tool. And it went ahead and it called the open project. Yep.
Love that. I love that user workflow that you did there. Nice.
Yeah.
So if we didn't put descriptions there, what would happen?
Well, so if you don't have the description, then the LLM is only using the name of the tool for its ability to discern when it should be used, right? And so the description is really critical to help the LLM understand when to use that tool.
Perfect. Thank you for explaining.
The descriptions for the, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, my bad. I was going to say open project is quite broad. So yes, you needed something more
exactly.
Yeah, I know specifically for Goose, like you really need to have these descriptions, but I just wanted to, like, for the audience, what would happen if we did it, type of thing. What were any like struggles or like aha moments you had when trying to create an MCP server?
I think a couple things, that I didn't fully grok in the beginning were around, how Goose is calling these extensions. So, at first I was attempting to just using Node to run the index.js file and doing that locally, and then having Goose, call into that. So not realizing at first that Goose is running a command, and that command is the command that starts the server. And then allows Goose to interact with that server on localhost. So I think that was an interesting one for me to understand. And then I think the general concept of what is an MCP server, right, was very helpful to grok, which is, and my perspective on that is, and my understanding is that the MCP server is effectively a proxy between the LLM and whatever the thing is that you want to access or do. Right. So in this case, it's VS Code. It could be an API. It could be a SQLite database. It could be, kind of anything. And what the MCP server is doing is exposing this list of tools, right, to Goose, to the LLM, and really just through text, right? The LLM understands text, and the LLMs that have tool use baked into them then know to be able to call like this open project as the function name, as the tool call, if you will. And then we handle that. So when the LLM calls, that tool, we handle that here, right? And you don't have to set it up with this structure, right, from the handler perspective to inline them or not. There's separate ways or various ways that you could potentially set this up. But all you basically want to do is have a handler that says, when I have a tool call, I want to handle it. And so really just understanding that that's really the basic, level of this. So this index.ts file, it's big because I'm doing a lot of things with Goose, but it could be very, very short if you have like one simple thing you want your tool to do. Like if you wanted to create a tool that would just say open a file or read a file, right, from your file system, you could be using the FS, node package to read from file system, and it would be a very, very short file, right, to be able to accomplish that.
I saw that yesterday with the YouTube's transcript MCP server. Only thing it does is get the transcript. That's all it does. One thing really well.
Gotcha.
So go, Ace. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, so we have a lot of people that are like very excited to try this out. I think one of the questions I wanted to ask was, we've seen a couple of the features that are available right now. Are there any plans to extend this? Like, are there features you're looking at? All of those near future things.
Absolutely. So the team has been chatting about a variety of things that we could do to make this better. One of the things we might consider doing is building a custom diff tool. So right now we're using the built-in VS Code diff tool, and then adding those buttons into the status bar to allow accept and reject. But we think it'd be really fun if we could do more granular accepting and rejecting. So getting better at inline accepting and rejecting of each change potentially, as opposed to just full file level changes. And so that could be a fun project. I think there are other things that we could potentially do around maybe having Goose open a file and navigate to a specific line. So putting the cursor on a specific line. So that would allow you to maybe navigate to like the definition of a function if you wanted to within VS Code. So, we're exploring a few different things. We think that, there's maybe something interesting too around linting and kind of like information about your file, like how many, errors might exist in it from like a TypeScript, error perspective or whatever it may be. So we're exploring a few things here, but I think there's a fair bit of opportunity.
That does sound exciting, and this is out of my laziness. This is totally, you can blame me for that. But when I was trying this out, I was curious if there was a way to, for example, when we made the change here to make the things bigger, if there was a way I could preview the changes first in terms of like the front end, what the result is, if this actually went through versus me manually going through the code. I know it's laziness. I'm assuming that would probably require some kind of like accept, reject, or revert kind of button, like, oh, apply this, but let me see what it looks like, and I want to take it back if it's not working. Because I don't think it's possible for you to save to the file to preview it if you don't accept it. So I know it sounds weird, but I was just thinking if that's something that could be possible in the near future.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, I'll definitely have to think through that. Yeah, I like that.
Awesome.
That too. Ooh,
Right.
I have a question. Am I able to use Goose CLI within the VS Code terminal?
Yes, so you definitely can. And that's actually another thing we might consider adding to this is the running of commands happening visually in VS Code's terminal. Right. So right now, Goose can call out to the shell and it will run, commands, bash commands directly that basically in like its own instance of a terminal, but you're not seeing that in a terminal. You're seeing that just in the Goose UI if you're using the Goose desktop tool. But it could be really fun to actually have Goose call into VS Code, open VS Code's terminal and run commands there, which also, could be pretty interesting. And then also, obviously, we have the Goose CLI. And so how those two things might interact there could be interesting. We have another open source project called Goose VS Code, which does add Goose CLI into VS Code, where you can highlight a bit of text and ask it to fix it with Goose, and it will use the Goose CLI in the terminal to do that. And so we're thinking about, ways that we could potentially, tie into that as well. There's also just, mention this, who knows if this will ever see the light of day, but we are playing around with building Goose into VS Code, like the chat UI itself, as a sidebar chat. And so, we've got some early prototypes of that working.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Right. So are you accepting, contributions? Of course, it's an open source project, but I just wanted to...
Absolutely. Yeah. Anybody that's interested in jumping in and adding something, improving it, I'm sure there's ways we can make it better, in terms of how the tools respond to Goose, to maybe give Goose more context on the change so that Goose can display that information in line in the chat. And then I think obviously all the tools that we talked about, and there's probably a plethora of ideas that, we haven't even scratched, that VS Code exposes information or APIs for.
Right. Sounds very good. I'm excited actually, especially for the Goose right in there, and I feel like it's just next level to be able to use Goose right in the like the way the Goose chat would be versus like me just typing on the CLI and everything is integrated. Well, in the meantime, I don't know if you have any more questions from the audience, or if you have any questions yourself, Ebony.
I don't. I'm excited I did test this out last night. I'm excited to play around with it some more. And I know most times when we have these live streams, you're going to get people that are going to create issues or going to go and open PRs and like iterate on it. So I'm super excited to see how this evolves even more This was a great demo. You were super clear and descriptive. Or were you trying to show something else? Did you think
just going to give the quick preview of this. So this is Goose running inside of VSCode. I know this was not planned, right? But one of the cool things about this is being able to add context, right? So, there are similar patterns elsewhere, but if I want to add the source folder to context for Goose, then you can do that here, right? And then remove it and so forth. So just thought I'd show that really quickly.
I love that. I love the way it looks too. Ooh, question. You want to take over the IntelliJ plugin? You've done so well.
I don't, Max. I appreciate the question, but no. I don't know if I want to own the VSCode plugin.
I'm really excited to even get to see
a preview
for the Goose chat one, and adding the context. I feel like that's
Goose chat.
Goose as an AI agent already goes like next level, but having it in the chat, I think that's amazing.
And I really like your idea of having the preview too, and having like the accept, and revert. I like that.
Yeah, that's nice.
Nice. All right, guys. Thank you so much, Andrew. I appreciate it. This was an amazing live stream. You're really good at explaining concepts. That was great. Do you have any closing remarks?
I'll just say we've already called it out, but we're hiring. We've got to go to block.xyz/careers and check out our open roles. There's tons across the company, but there are some that are on the web team. We've got 2 open roles right now, so please check it out if you're interested.
Do you want to quickly say what the open roles are?
Yes. So one of them is a more senior role on our web foundations team, and so that is our client infrastructure, CI/CD, our tooling, our component libraries. So that team, Bianca, who's actually on the stream, manages that team. So it'd be on her team. And then we also have an open role for a kind of a more junior engineer earlier in their career to join our web marketing team, right? So we're working on building out a brand new version of the cash.app website. And there's some really fun interactions and a bunch of fun things we're doing there. So definitely check that roll out if you're interested.
Nice.
And using Goose and Copilot, VSCode, and ChatGPT and all the fun things.
Love it.
Yeah.
And this is a great comment too. Really thoughtful design extension. Great job. So again, great job. Ace, any closing remarks?
Yeah, I mean, as always, thanks everyone for joining us. If you have any questions, want to follow up with Andrew as well, or the rest of the community, you can check us out on Discord. I think there's a link up there coming up soon. And also you can create issues, sending PLs, contributions on GitHub as well. So as always, thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Sounds great. Thanks all.